So this is one of those Sundays where I'm tempted to say, is this the gospel of the Lord? Is this the good news of the Lord? A very challenging gospel reading, and also a very challenging New Testament reading as well. Let me begin with some good news stories, which you may have come across in the mainstream press, but they won't have got a lot of space, I'm sure. If you ever need cheering up, go to a website called Be Inspired. Beinspired.org, I think it is. Anyway, just Google Be Inspired. And it's like a newspaper, but it's full of good news. It's full of the good news that should be in our mainstream press, but often isn't. Or if it is, it's just a few inches of column space. So here's 3 good news stories in the midst of all the bad news stories that I could be talking about this morning, but which I'm going to completely ignore. First of all, Gabriel Clark. Gabriel Clark is a 12-year-old boy hailing from Cumbria in England. You can tell it's American, can't you? Looking at his age, it might be difficult to comprehend the efforts he has already made to serve humanity. But there's a lot more than meets the eye with this young man. Gabriel turned to his Instagram account to organize a raffle to help Ukrainian children whose lives have been turned upside down during the conflict. Gabriel is a proficient woodworker, and his initiative raised money to raffle off one of his handcrafted bowls that he etched with a yellow and a blue ring in an effort to symbolize the Ukrainian flag. Gabriel originally had a goal of raising around £6,000, I'm translating from dollars, for the Ukrainian kids. But to his surprise, he has now raised almost £100,000. So 3 cheers for Gabriel. Then there is the former Russian football captain, Igor Denisov. He has become one of the highest profile athletes still living in the country to speak out against the war in Ukraine. Denisov earned 54 caps between 2008 and 2016, and he has openly called the invasion, quotes, a catastrophe and a complete horror. The ex-midfielder made these comments in an interview with a sports journalist, and that interview has been published on YouTube. The 38-year-old said, "Maybe they will put me in jail or kill me for these words, but I'm telling it like it is." Then there is the CEO of Moderna, Stefan Bancel, I think it's pronounced. He is currently one of the world's youngest billionaires, and this is largely due to his company's efforts to develop, manufacture and market its massively successful COVID-19 vaccine. Maybe you have Moderna still coursing through your veins and systems. And he and his company plan on giving away most of their fortune, and they hope to inspire others to do the same. The CEO has a net worth of a whopping $4.1 billion, according to Bloomberg's Billionaires Index. But Bancel has said in an interview, "We don't need a lot of money, and we want to use most of our money to help suffering in the world." Bancel said this openly at one of the Davos conferences. Well, more of that, please. Now, here's the thing. Gabriel Clark, the 12-year-old woodworker, could have put off raffling that special bowl in favour of concentrating on his own business and his own profit. After all, he'd only just started his own kind of cottage industry on his Instagram account. Or he could have had the idea of raffling the bowl, but he might have waited until his own business was a bit more successful. Or maybe he could have waited until he was a bit more skilled at doing what he was doing. But he didn't. He went for his idea straight away. And Igor Denisov could have kept quiet about the situation in Ukraine, at least maybe until a point in the future when it might be safer to go public. But he didn't. He spoke out straight away. And Stefan Bancel could have ploughed all of Moderna's profits back into the company. Haven't we heard that argument again and again and again over the last few weeks and months? Oh no, these profits can't be shared. They've got to be ploughed back into the company. Or no, not with Moderna. But he could have decided to do that, to make sure that things were even more secure before thinking about giving any away to charitable causes. But he didn't. He resolved to give away the majority of his fortune and his company's fortune straight away. To quote a recent climate change activist's placard, if not now, when? If not now, and that's backwards on the video, oh dear, never mind. If not now, when? And then there's a subtitle, there is no planet B. Well, there is no planet B and there is no plan B. If not now, when? And this could be a very apt title for our gospel reading today, as Jesus seeks to persuade his hearers that when it comes to embracing the kingdom of God, when it comes to responding to his mission, when it comes to being part of that mission, they must do so immediately. If not now, when? Now I'm going to let you into a little secret here. In my ordination training, which was many, many years ago, I think we had a morning. I think we just had one morning on time management, which might explain the state that the Church of England is in. But, and I hope bishops and archdeacons get a little bit more time management training. Here's hoping. Anyway, here's the sum total of my time management training while I was in theological training. You probably can't read that. But there's 4 quadrants. And again, for people watching this on video, I definitely need to translate the backward writing. So there's 4 quadrants. The idea is that things come into your inbox, things come into your voicemail, people grab you on the street, people grab you at church, people grab you at coffee morning like they did yesterday, from all angles. But things are either important, or they're urgent, or they're neither, or they're both. So, a nice little quadrant. Things can be not urgent and not important. Things can be important, but not urgent. Things can be urgent, but not important. And then there's this golden quadrant. Things can be important and urgent. And the idea is you spend, and this is not just for clergy people, this is for anyone, trying to be efficient and trying to be productive in their lives. The important thing is focusing mainly on that quadrant. And it's a nice little tool, and I have applied it over the years. You may have heard me, if you're on PCC, you may have heard me occasionally quoting it. So there you go. But the whole point of this, of course, is that Jesus is saying to his followers, when it comes to following me, when it comes to following my mission, when it comes to carrying out my mission, yes, it's in that quadrant. It's in the important and urgent quadrant, and it demands your attention, and it demands your energy immediately, as quickly as possible. To one man, Jesus said, "Follow me." But he said, "Lord, first let me go and bury my father." But Jesus said to him, "Let the dead bury their own dead, but as for you, go and proclaim the kingdom of God." Another said, "I will follow you, Lord, but let me first say farewell to those at my home." Jesus said to him, "No one who puts a hand to the plough and looks back is fit for the kingdom of God." What is the meaning behind these words of Jesus? Is he being impatient? Is he showing, frankly, a spectacular lack of care towards the bereaved or towards family life in general. Or maybe he's saying that when it comes to following him, when it comes to embracing the kingdom of God, when it comes to following his mission, there is nothing more important, nor is there anything more urgent. Our first reading has a similar sense of urgency. If we live by the Spirit, says Paul to the early Christians in modern-day Turkey, let us also be guided by the Spirit. And the idea here is keeping in step with God's Spirit, not lagging behind, not putting off till tomorrow what the Spirit is calling us to do today. Yesterday we had a wonderful funeral of Joyce Rhodes, who, was 93. And if you know Joyce at all, she was this wonderfully devout lady from Northenden Methodist Church. But we had her funeral here because her family grave is in our churchyard. And it was a wonderful celebration of somebody who has journeyed so well through her life. Somebody who in so many ways has kept in step with the Spirit and has lived such a wonderfully fruitful life. And yes, Joyce did live till she was 93. But of course, not all of us are blessed with such a long life. And in a sense, every funeral is a reminder of our own mortality. And there is a saying, isn't there? Life's too short. Life's too short. I don't think we ever say life's too long. Our time is limited. And I think there's a particular sense of that. I thought it was just me, sort of coming out of lockdown and everything. I thought it was just me, but I've got this sense at the moment of just being on this very fast conveyor belt. It's a bit like at Manchester Airport when you're walking along the corridors and suddenly you're on the travelator and everything seems to be going past you so much more quickly. Well, I've talked to a few people, and apparently I'm not on my own. And it does feel like time has sped up. And it's going to take us a while, I think, to get used to life at a more regular pace again. But that just emphasizes this thing that life is too short. The days kind of just flash by. And the time for responding to God's call, is not unlimited. And in fact, what Jesus is saying is the time for responding to God's call is not tomorrow, but it's today. A colleague of mine from another deanery, who will go unnamed, I won't embarrass him, he once quipped in a deanery meeting, "Youth work? Here's my version of youth work. I wait until the young people are over 50 and then I reach out to them." It's so easy, isn't it, to put things off until we think conditions might be better or conditions might be more favourable. It's so tempting, isn't it, to put off a decision in the hope that something better will come along. And who watched or who listened to Sir Paul McCartney last night? A bit, yes. I survived till midnight and then I went to bed. So I've got another half hour to watch. But wow, what a performance, what a set. Lots of Beatles songs. But yeah, you might know that famous story about Decca, who in 1962 received a demo tape from a band called the Beatles. And their reaction, guitar bands, they're on their way out. They were waiting for something better to come along. And they didn't realize there was this golden opportunity that had landed in their laps. And that's something that's like us so often. That's human nature. We think things are going to be better tomorrow or next week or next month or next year. But actually, often the time to act is now. And our golden opportunity is sat right in front of us. And it's right under our nose. Martin Luther King shared these very powerful words in a sermon at Riverside Church in New York in 1967. It's not the usual one. It's not the normal one. I'd never come across this before. It's very powerful. We are now faced, he says, with the fact that tomorrow is today. We are confronted with the fierce urgency of now. And I guess he was talking about, civil rights and changes for civil rights. We are confronted with the fierce urgency of now. In this unfolding conundrum of life and history, there is such a thing as being too late. Procrastination is still the thief of time. Life often leaves us standing bare, naked, and dejected with a lost opportunity. The tide in the affairs of men does not remain always at a flood. Sometimes it ebbs. And we may cry out desperately for time to pause in her passage, but time is deaf to every plea and rushes on. Over the bleached bones and the jumbled residue of numerous civilizations are written the pathetic words, too late. There is an invisible book of life that faithfully records our vigilance or our neglect. Just to lighten the mood, I'm going to share this little ditty from one Gloria Pizza. Procrastination is my sin. It brings me naught but sorrow. I know that I should stop it. In fact, I will. Tomorrow. So whatever God's Spirit might be nudging you to do today, whatever God's Spirit might be nudging us to do today, let's make sure we do today and not tomorrow. Let's not relegate the work of God's kingdom into any of these three quadrants. Let's make sure the work of God's kingdom in our lives, individually and corporately, are always up here, important and urgent. After all, tomorrow may be too late. Amen.